Hello, everybody. My name is David Noffs, and I am a lecturer and learning designer in the School of Professional Studies at Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois. Today, I'll be presenting on where did we go wrong during the great onlining of 2020? Adult education may hold the answer. I hope you enjoy the presentation.
The Great Onlining of 2020 was an event that was not predicted by academics nor educational theoreticians. While we didn't want to be forced quite so dramatically to move to online learning, nevertheless the experience has been transformative for educators across the globe. But before I get started, I'd like to provide some background about me and my own philosophy. After 15 years of teaching at Columbia College in Chicago, I was invited to design a course for Northwestern's School of Professional Studies called Learning Environment Design. It gave me a chance to put my years of practice in faculty development and research surrounding online learning into real practice. Inside this 10-week course designed to teach graduate students how to apply learning theory and instructional design concepts, I created one week-long module entitled Preparing for the Apocalypse, Using the Internet to Survive Downtime. In my introductory video of the week's subject matter to the class, I said,
Welcome to Module 8. I know the title of this module sounds very dramatic, and I wanted it to be. Being an educator and learning environment designer in the information age requires some careful and critical reflection about how we view technology and the relationship of people to technology. At times it feels that technology is driving educators rather than the other way around. Some educators are actually fearful of technology and what it represents. In my own research, I have noted that these fears fall into 4 categories. Fear of new ways of learning, fear of new ways of teaching, employment security, fear of change and being overwhelmed, too much of a time commitment, fear I will look like I don't know what I'm doing, being exposed. However, once these fears are acknowledged and confronted, faculty often undergo significant changes in their attitude toward technology and their own practice as a result. Furthermore, as they realize the power of technology, they see some of the new possibilities for teaching with technology and engaging their students in a variety of creative ways.
Little did I know how prophetic this title would turn out to be. Although the rest of the module did not venture into the realm of global pandemic, I was only thinking at the time about school web systems. When instructors asked me about what they should do if the LMS or school website goes down, I point out that the internet was designed to have multiple channels operating simultaneously to limit disruption of information sharing. I never dreamed it would be the actual school itself that would be shut down. But in both scenarios, the message that the internet operates as a communication safety net holds true. As I designed IDS 425, I tried to incorporate adult education theories wherever possible. The entire course was constructed with a learner-centered approach. From the very first week of class, I wanted students to determine their own expectations, not only for themselves, but also for me. I created a community charter assignment. Not a new concept in online learning, but what was new for my students was that they had nothing to work from. It was entirely from scratch and with people they did not yet know. Throughout this process, I encouraged students to listen and work together, but did not intervene at all. We examined roles and responsibilities, and then students were broken into groups to develop their own case studies that they would use throughout the course for various assignments. Students also were asked to provide items for our weekly optional sync session agendas. Lastly, I built in periods of self-reflection near the beginning and near the end of the class. This provided an opportunity to connect one-to-one with each student and form not a student-teacher relationship, but rather a collaborative learner relationship. I even included readings from Malcolm Knowles and Jack Mesereau during discussions on adult learning and transformative learning theory. As you can see from these exhibits, students have not only created governance models that are useful for guiding their own participation in the course, but they have created models that can be used for all kinds of online interaction as they navigate online learning for themselves. I was teaching the last 2 weeks of the winter iteration of IDS 425 when it became clear the pandemic would force all courses to be conducted online. I was still grading final projects as we prepared to train over 1,000 faculty members in little over a week how to move their course content and start teaching online for the spring quarter. We were witnessing the great onlining of 2020, as George Siemens called it on Twitter. Some highlights from a survey conducted by Bayview Analytics include 90% of those institutions had about a week to move their courses and instructors online. I won't go through this entire list of statistics, but as you could see, it was a singular event that caused a dramatic shift in the dynamics of all academic institutions and how they were delivering course content. However, there appears to be consensus among many academic researchers and scholars that the move to emergency remote teaching, now commonly referred to as ERT, has created a two-tier system of online education: ERT courses and properly designed online courses. I would like to place ERT on the lower tier and optimal online learning, OOL, on the upper tier. The speed with which thousands of courses were moved online was staggering. Development cycles that were normally 6 months were being reduced to mere weeks. While ostensibly only a temporary or emergency fix, this nevertheless led to the inevitable comparison between online learning and face-to-face learning. Some educators were warning that the term online learning itself would become politicized. This quote from EDUCAUR's review addresses a major problem facing institutions during the pandemic. Indeed, Hodges and his colleagues warned us that online learning would become a politicized term that could take any number of meanings depending on the argument someone wants to advance. Trollish articles, a few of which you see here on the screen, appeared time and time again throughout the pandemic and continue to appear. The usual theme is that online learning does not work or is inferior to on-ground or face-to-face teaching. But even under the best of circumstances, how can online learning possibly fill the needs of undergraduates yearning human contact and a sense of college community? While virtual teaching can cover the curriculum, how will schools address the social, emotional, and experiential needs that real campuses offer? While some educators may shrug their shoulders at this dilemma, leading adult educators and philosophers have long extolled the virtues of community building and creating learner-centered cultures in virtual communities, challenging undergraduates to not only participate in, but create and lead virtual communities can fill some of the void laid bare by empty campuses and non-existent student groups. By leveraging extensive research conducted on the roles of online learners and teachers, and by making self-governance and action learning new pillars of online learning, we may be able to turn adversity into a new age of online learning. ERT instructors use Freire's banking model and continue to lecture to students through long Zoom synchronous sessions. OOL classrooms have facilitated asynchronous sessions where students can enter into dialogue and discourse nurtured by the facilitator or teacher. ERT classrooms lack opportunities for open dialogue and exploratory learning. OOL, on the other hand, can employ bell hooks teaching to transgress model and break down the teacher-student power inequities so that learners are able to explore, discover, and create knowledge freely. ERT classrooms ignore the community of online learners. OOL celebrates communities and individual learners, hearing their life stories and motivations to learn. Malcolm Knowles noted that adults learn better from experience even if they make mistakes. Adults favor a pragmatic approach and must be able to apply learning to solve specific problems. Adult learners are also most interested in learning things that have an immediate relevance to their situation. Adults need to be involved in the planning and evaluation of their instruction. ERT classrooms tend to be outcome driven, and critical thinking is viewed as too difficult to achieve. OOL values critical thinking and strives for transformational learning by having students openly share their unique perspectives, challenge one another respectively, and engage in self-reflection. Disorienting dilemmas are welcome. This model, developed by Chrissy Wilson and myself at Northwestern University, shows the difference between optimal online learning and emergency remote teaching. In the model, you can see, starting at the top right, community building, where EIT pays lip service to community building. OOL, on the other hand, engages in activities such as my own community charter, but many other instructors use all sorts of various activities, some of them referred to as icebreakers, but often have the impact of bringing students closer together and building community. Experiential learning here, once again, ERT has very little experiential learning, considering it is lecture-based, whereas optimal online learning engages in consensus building, includes life stories, and values the experience that learners bring to the course. Critical thinking usually entails in ERT virtual proctored exams at best, whereas optimal online learning uses debate-style discussions, problem-solving activities to get students to think critically about the subject matter. Self-reflection, once again, ERT does little in terms of self-reflection, whereas optimal online learning has students build e-portfolios, reflect on the work that they have submitted in course through self-reflection papers, and digital journals, which are ongoing entries that students post to track their journey through their programs and courses. As far as transformative learning, ERT does little in this area as well. However, OOL has students engage in difficult discussions, role play activities, and embraces disorienting dilemmas where students can indeed reflect deeply and change their positions on subject matter. And lastly, learner-centered teaching, and this is really where we come back to the center of this circular model. EIT engages only in webcam lectures and pretty much employs Freire's banking model to simply push information out to students. Even when breakout rooms are employed, usually the means is just to have students amplify the message that was sent to them through lecture means or through Zoom PowerPoint presentations. OOL, on the other, really has students take the lead of the course. Student-to-student discussions, asynchronous discussion boards, where students really drive the discussion and thinking and examination and analysis of the subject matter, and even in the area of questions of assumptions of power, where students really begin to teach one another and pull the instructor in to guide them along their journey as they discover for themselves the meaning of the subject matter. So this model encapsulates how OOL embraces learner-centered teaching and the difference between ERT and OOL. For more information on what makes OOL different from ERT, please read our chapter in Utah State University's Open Access book series, which has just recently been published, called Resilient Pedagogy: Practical Teaching Strategies to Overcome Distance, Disruption, and Distraction, published once again by Utah State University.
Thank you for viewing this presentation today. And if you have any questions about the material or the presentation, or just want to reach out to me, please feel free to contact me at david.noffs@northwestern.edu. And I want to thank RCEN for inviting me to present during this wonderful conference.